As you're probably well aware from the title of this video and the brouhaha that's been going on online and at the Hill for about a week now, uh, it's been a really wild ride. And it's because the Hill, I think, has behaved extremely irresponsibly in how it's treated Katie Halper, who is not only an incredibly talented journalist, the hardest working woman on the left, as I often say, an incredible journalist, but also someone who has been a contributor at the Hill on the show Rising for years now, since the Crystal and Sagar days. She predates any of my involvement with the channel and has been a regular hosting, I believe, Thursday spots for years, in addition to Monday before last coming into DC to fill in as one of the Monday swing hosts. We also, the Friday before, recorded a pilot episode for what we hoped would be a new show at the Hill, a kind of left view that we were really excited about. They only released one clip from that, about an hour that we recorded at that time. So it was a real shock to us all when we found out that not only would Rising not be airing Katie's Radar on Monday, but that they rather summarily terminated their entire relationship with Katie. I'll leave it for Katie to explain the exact details and sequence of events of what happened. But it seemed very clear to me, I will speak for myself here, that the choice was ideological and not substantive as they've claimed. Katie did a really, truly amazing radar on Rashida Tlaib's comments about how progressives cannot be progressive except for Palestine, and was roundly harassed and targeted by people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz and other Democratic insiders and people who are affiliated with groups that have a long-standing issue with progressives in the United States, accused of anti-Semitism and the like. And Katie's radar not only pushed back against those claims, it very assiduously ran down a list of all of the other very credible figures, including many members of Israeli government, who have also characterized what is going on in the region as apartheid living conditions for Palestinians. This is far from a controversial statement at this point. However, after recording her radar, she was told it would not air. When she offered, in lieu of airing the radar, that she could do a kind of a both sides take, because she was told initially that the reason that they didn't want to air it was because they didn't feel like, Robbie was necessarily prepared to offer the necessary pushback that a topic like this demands, and that, in the alternative, perhaps she could do a segment during her normal Thursday segment where there was someone offering the quote unquote opposing point of view. Katie was amenable to this. However, that was not a real offer that was ever really apparently sanctioned by the higher ups who were making these kind of decisions. And when she texted with the producers before her normal regular Thursday hit about what the subjects were going to be, she got no response, and then was told basically that her services were no longer required, told to fill out any outstanding invoices, and that her relationship with the Hill would be terminated permanently. This was very shocking and disturbing. The full details of this came out. Obviously, I've been talking to Katie, who is not only an amazing journalist and Hill correspondent, but a friend of mine, one of my oldest friends in the left media space, about it throughout. And, Robbie, the producers, they're not at fault here. The people that we work with day to day, we were all kind of surprised by this decision because, frankly, we have talked about issues like this in the past. You've seen, me do a radar on BDS and that law that was trying to force people to take I won't do a BDS loyalty pledge before they got a government contract. And in other adjacent topics, Katie has been very forcefully and persuasively talking about these issues on the Hill for a very long time. However, and I'll invite Katie to talk a bit more about this in detail, there have been management changes at the Hill, not just immediately after Crystal and Sagar's departure, but more recently than that. And, like I said this morning on the Hill, they maintain that is an editorial choice, that it was the style and not the substance of Katie's radar that made the difference. I think that's patently absurd. The quality of her work has never been brought into question up until this point. But it became clear that as much as I was advocating for Katie to be brought back to the Hill It's why I took those 2 days off. I was hoping to use my leverage to be able to get them to simply issue a statement saying they handled this inappropriately, a mistake had been made, and of course, they would love to continue their longstanding relationship with Katie. They were not amenable to that. So then came this difficult decision that if you saw my late night tweeting last night, I wrestled with right up to the last minute, which was whether or not it was more useful for me to show solidarity and leave the show with Katie, or to continue to use the platform, which is a large corporate media platform, the likes of which very rarely hosts progressive views, to do exactly that, to get my viewpoint out there, to push back against Robbie, and to offer a counterpoint. The show has been struggling to find progressive guests for some time. Obviously, you've seen them testing out a lot of different kinds of people. I think that Katie, in my view, was like the strongest contender to take over on a Monday slot and to fill in for me if and when I ultimately left the show and sit in that left chair. And obviously, they had no longer kept that relationship with Katie. And I've been working, as you guys know, who listen to my call-in show, talking at great length about how I often am frustrated with the topic selection. I'm often frustrated with the format. I feel like it's taken me away from bad faith. I don't know that I want to do it. And honestly, there's nothing keeping me there. This is not a permanent decision. I'm really trying to take the temperature of what people feel like would be most useful, because I think this is really a borderline case, to be honest. And ultimately, I made the decision to say that if I could make a statement making it very clear that I strongly disagreed with the Hill's decision, I believed it was censorship, but that I will continue to use the platform to the extent that I can to advance the politics that I think are so underheard, especially in the mainstream media sphere, then I will go ahead and do exactly that. I was told that I could say whatever I wanted on my personal channels. I mean, not that I need, permission, but I don't want anyone to feel like they have to hold back here tonight. But I just wanted to start by saying unequivocally that the Hill should not have fired Katie, that I don't doubt that it was for ideological reasons and that it was censorship and not an editorial decision. From an editorial perspective, there were no inaccuracies that anyone to date has pointed out in Katie's radar. And the excuses that were offered to me in off-the-record conversations were completely unpersuasive and inconsistent with how editorial decisions have been made during my tenure at the show. Questions that I've been asking myself are, is it more important to stay to be able to platform some folks like I've been able to do recently? I was so glad to have two folks from the Revolutionary Blackout Network on recently, Sabby and Nick. I think their presence on the show was meaningful. I would like to be able to do things like that going forward. I wonder if I leave, is there going to be anybody in my stead who would be able to talk about subjects like what Rashida Tlaib has been going through and like the plight of Palestinians, who will be willing to use phraseology like it's apartheid conditions? I don't know.